breaking news in the last few hours. Jaxson Dart is QB2. Now, let me start off with this basic question, Tiki. The unofficial depth chart has him at number 2.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
Nothing really. Nothing at all. It means that Jaxson Dart has done enough to show that he is not a liability if he should have to play. If he had to become a player, if Russell Wilson got hurt and he had to come in and play for the New York Giants, the Giants trust him to be able to do that. Theoretically.
Right.
That's what that means. I mean, in some ways, it's actually really good for Jaxson Dart because he will take second-team reps for the Giants in preseason, in the regular season practices. Again, it's mostly semantics. It doesn't mean much, and other than the fact that if Russell Wilson gets hurt or is unavailable, then Jaxson Dart will be the first quarterback to step into the game.
And to me, that's the biggest deal. I mean, we could be 5 days away from Jaxson Dart making his NFL debut, and that's not something I would want to do. And that's not a knock on how he's looked in the preseason or if he's ready or not.
Right.
It's just that I think the Giants have been in this great spot where they could take it easy. They can take a deep breath.
Well,
they
they're
can
still
allow
going to do that, though.
Right, but by him being the backup, they're one, Andrew Thomas not playing, defensive end doesn't get blocked, Russell Wilson gets thrown to another country away from Jaxson Dart being forced into a divisional battle week 1.
Okay, so now if that happens, Jaxson Dart has to step into a game, and we're, as Giant fans watching this, are you upset? Or are you kind of intrigued?
Upset is not the right word. I wouldn't be upset. It's not what I would want to do, though. I still think the best course of action with this young quarterback is to really take your time.
True.
Because the Giants are in a position to take their time.
They are in a position. That's what they crafted this quarterback room to do, to put them in position so that they didn't have to rush Jaxson Dart into a starting situation early, potentially get him, I don't know, ruined or whatever you want to say because he doesn't understand the level that he's playing at. But it didn't seem like any of that was the case in the preseason.
Because it's the preseason.
Of course it's still the preseason. But the way he was able to pick up and process and do all of those things that you have to do in the preseason, it gave you faith that he was going to be okay. Is not swimming in it like some of these other young quarterbacks that we've seen over the last 15 years or so that get thrust into these quarterback roles. Here's the best way to think about it, Evan, because I remember this from my rookie season. When we started playing in the preseason, and I was taking second-team reps because obviously it was Rodney Hampton and Tyrone Wheatley. Those were the two guys. But I would get the second team and the third-team reps in the preseason games, and it felt easy. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm just saying it felt like, man, I got this.
Right.
I can do this. This isn't as hard as everybody said it was going to be. So in my mind, like in my subconscious, I'm saying, this is easy. I got this. That's what it looked like for Jaxson Dart. And so ultimately my rookie year, Hamp got hurt. Tyrone Wheatley was I don't know what they thought about him, but I ended up starting basically. And it felt easy for the first couple of games. And then I got hurt and then it changed. But I think Jaxson Dart is in a position where he made it look easy. Therefore, you have faith that if it gets harder, he'll be able to adjust. That's what I take away from Jaxson Dart.
And Brian Daboll, who is what's so interesting about Brian Daboll, and I want to play you a clip from just yesterday. Daboll was asked this exact question: who's the backup quarterback? It's one of the more intriguing things going into the start of the season. We already know who the starting quarterback is.
Right.
So you look at that quarterback room, which still features Jameis Winston and Jaxson Dart, and it's natural to say, who's the backup? And so I was watching this earlier this morning because I was curious. And my opinion was, as I'm stating, I would have Jameis Winston as my backup. I'd have Jaxson Dart as the third stringer, and I would continue to take a deep breath and take my time. Listen to Brian Daboll's answer to a very straightforward question on who the backup quarterback would be.
Since you are on to Washington week, have you decided who the number 2 quarterback on game day will be?
Yeah, any roster decisions based on who's going to be the backup or who this player is going to we'll have that out there on Sunday.
Okay, here, a couple of things. You could answer the question, but why tell us it's going to come out on Sunday and then 24 hours later there's the unofficial depth chart that tells us the answer?
It's all gamemanship. It's all
gamesmanship with who? Us or the Washington Commanders?
The Commanders.
Oh, okay.
Not with us. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know this might hurt some radio hosts' feelings, Brian Dable gives zero you-know-whats about anything that we say or think.
But does he care about? Does he care about the guy who buys a $400 train ticket to go down to Washington D.C. / Landover, Maryland, to watch the Commanders against the Giants?
Hey, let me ask Sean a question. Hey, Sean, let's bring you into this conversation. If Jaxson Dart was the third-string quarterback, would you still buy a $400 ticket and go down and sit in Mark Simone's box at Washington?
You're damn right. If Jameis Winston was starting Sunday, I'm going down and spending that money.
Now, let's not get nuts. If Jameis was starting, you'd be rioting.
I might be calling asking for a $340 one.
How does an unofficial depth chart leak then if the head coach said 24 hours earlier, you'll find out Sunday?
I'm going to guess that the beginning of every week, because this happens for the broadcast teams, you get a flip card. You've seen those flip cards.
Yeah.
Like you get a flip card. And the flip card has, in essence, the depth chart on it, even though that depth chart might just be what was thrown on the flip card. And so I'm going to guess, because this is not coming from Dave's. This is not coming from Pat Hanlon. This is not coming from anyone associated with the New York Giants. This is a flip card that someone got to look at. And now they're saying, Jaxson Dart's a second-team quarterback. He's second on the flip card. We'll know what he is come Sunday.
So he still may not be the backup on Sunday?
Actually, we'll probably know Saturday.
Right. You know, just being a detective on this, because, again, there's a difference between my opinion and what I think is going to happen. Same with you. Tiki's opinion versus what's going to happen. My opinion, and when we've talked about this throughout the summer and spring, I'm pretty consistent. I would not start Jaxson Dart, ideally, at all this season. I would let him sit and learn. I think the data shows that quarterbacks who wait are more successful than quarterbacks that are thrown into the fire.
Except for Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud, the two last rookies of the year.
Yeah, but you just named two specific examples that are recently, and they worked out.
It just happened because this is the evolution of college football. Now, by the way, as an aside, real quickly, and this is for literally 5 seconds, college football sucks.
Yes, it does.
It is a bad watch.
Yes, it is.
Because you don't know who's good, you don't know who sucks, and even the good teams suck.
That's a good point.
So college football is bad. Now keep going.
Thank you.
College football has become a little bit closer from operation-wise, from preparation-wise, from depth of playbook-wise to what the NFL is. And so you're starting to see some of these young quarterbacks understand it a little bit quicker. You know what I mean?
So you're saying that's more of a reason for them to start right away?
No, I'm just saying it's more of a reason why we're seeing immediate success.
I got you.
From some of these. Some of these kids are not. Some of them still stink for the first couple of years.
But you know what I think is unrelated to this? Most teams who draft young quarterbacks with high promise are bad. And when you're bad, you're desperate. And when you're desperate, you start a young quarterback right away.
Right.
Now, while the Giants may still be bad, they've got a lot to prove. They also signed a potential future Hall of Fame quarterback. Mm-hmm. They're in an odd position where their quarterback room is strong. So unlike a lot of teams who are forced into action, like the Texans were forced to start C.J. Stroud. It worked, but they didn't really have any other option. The Giants are in a spot where they can take their time. I'm just telling you, and I felt this way when the Jets have drafted young quarterbacks. I feel this way a lot. I would give my young quarterback time. But the tea leaves I'm reading, and you tell me you're close to the action now, is that Brian Dable can't wait to start this guy. Well, he loves Jaxson Dart. It's his favorite toy, and I think there's a chance we see him before mid-November.
Right. So for Houston, it was Davis Mills or C.J. Stroud.
Right.
What are we talking about? It's going to be C.J. Stroud. For Commanders, I forget who was the backup last year.
Oh, great question.
I don't remember. But
Commanders. Oh, it was Marcus Mariota, right?
Yes, that's right. Mariota or Jaden Daniels.
That's my point.
And so the Giants are not in that situation.
Exactly.
And so I don't think, just to now answer your point, I don't think that Brian Dable wants to see Jaxson Dart play. But I do think this creates a phenomenal opportunity if, for instance, the game is out of hand, one way or another, doesn't even matter.
Right.
For the New York Giants. And you want to bring in your second backup quarterback. You don't owe Russell Wilson his history and his legacy to play 4 quarters. Put Jaxson Dart in for 3 or 4 series.
Right. That experience can help him in your mind.
And let him see real football. Right? And so a real regular season football, because obviously he saw it in the preseason, but we know what that is. It's preseason. It's simple. It's cover 1, cover 3, cover 2. It's basic stuff. Let them see real football. And if the game gets way out of hand. So I'm not saying that that's the design, But when you have him as your backup, if he is the backup on game day and not the emergency third-string quarterback, then that opportunity presents himself.
Right, but
if he's the emergency third-string quarterback, he can't play.
Correct. The other thing is, we like to tailor-made when our quarterback's going to make his debut. I've already seen Giant fans do it. Look at the schedule. Ooh, the Saints, that's a soft landing spot. Completely get it. You just laid out a great example. If it's a blowout one way or the other, soft landing spot. Can I paint another scenario to you that is absolutely on the table? For the first decade of Russell Wilson's career, he never missed games. The guy played. Well, over the last few years, that's changed.
True.
He had a calf issue last year. He missed the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Back in 2021, he had like a finger issue, and he missed 4 weeks of the season.
Right. What happens when you get old?
Of course. And I'm not calling him injury prone. I'm just saying bleep happens. When you also factor in Andrew Thomas may not play in this game, so who knows how much protection Russ is going to get.
James Hudson, let's go.
It is possible that Russell Wilson gets hurt. Like we saw with Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago. Bleep happens. There's a scenario where, unlike the soft landing spot you described of a blowout, or I described of the Saints, that it's a 10-10 game at the half. Russ is hurt, and here comes Jaxson Dart. And while that's exciting, and I'm not angry about it, that would not be ideal.
Evan, you took the words right out of my mouth. Giant fans on the other side of the glass. Would you not be thrilled to see that?
Yeah,
even if it was a disaster.
I would be pumped up, but I think the Giants know that. I think we're not thinking about the other scenario that's going to unfold here. And they trotted this out in the preseason, and we should have saw the warning signs. They're going to play Jaxson Dart on Sunday. They're going to play Jaxson Dart versus Dallas. They're coming up with package plays for him, which has become a phenomenon. He presents a different style of offense than Russell Wilson moonballing it out. His run ability, his physical ability. I'm not telling you he's going to go play 20 snaps at quarterback, but he will run on and off the field, and you will see 5 snaps on Sunday where Jaxson Dart is on the field. They've already tested this in the preseason, seeing if he's ready to come off the bench. Those signs are there.
And remember, the Cardinals back in the day did that, but in reverse. Matt Leinart was a starter, and Kurt Warner would come in for package plays, and then he just outplayed Leinart and became the starting cornerback.
I kind of forgot that. I forgot that Matt Leinart Arizona thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody thought he was done. Like he was washed. Kurt
Warner, yeah.
But he wasn't, obviously. He led him to a Super Bowl. I didn't even think about it in that regard. But that is unconventional. That would be innovation in a way that we haven't seen. I think maybe... Did Baltimore do that a little
bit?
With
Lamar Jackson.
San Francisco did it with Colin Kaepernick. He actually had a big run against the Jets. I'll never forget that.
That's true.
And they used him in select packages. I don't know if that's...
But those were completely different quarterback situations.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily what's going to happen.
No.
I think it's more Daboll loves this guy. I think that's obvious. And I think he wants to elevate him, and he wants to fast-track him. Like, my opinion is far different than what I think Brian Daboll's going to do. Yeah. I think he wants him to be the starter by November.
But is there anything wrong with that? If they believe truly that he's ready. And here's the problem with young quarterbacks on teams like the Giants, teams that have been bad the last couple of years, 3 wins a year ago, but crushed the offseason, like retooled some of the offensive line. They brought in tons of talent on the defensive side of the football. They already had some talent on that side of anyways over the last couple of years. And so we think, oh, they're just going to stink again. But what if they don't? Right? What if they're actually pretty good? What if they aren't a sieve defensively and are able to limit teams to, I don't know, two or so scores per game, and they can win games by being just very decently good on offense? And if that becomes the case, doesn't it behoove you to start that process now? Well, as opposed to being a crappy team who throws a young quarterback who's going to struggle, kind of like in Carolina, what they did with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
Right? So doesn't it feel like the opportunity is greater here than it is for most situations where the team was bad and drafted a young quarterback?
Well, you said a minute earlier, is it a bad thing if they get him on the field right away? I do want to answer that. Now, WFAN NFL football is powered by Verizon. It's a bad thing if it fails. Like, we sit here now knowing Daniel Jones failed, knowing Zach Wilson failed, knowing Sam Darnold failed. And so it's easy to sit back and say, here's why it failed. I'm telling you in real time that based on the experience of Sam Darnold, based on the experience of Zach Wilson, to a degree Daniel Jones, but it was different.
Right.
I would rather have my young quarterback learn. I'd rather not throw him into the mix. Now, history will tell us, or the results will tell us if it was the right thing or not. I'm sitting here telling you, based on the experience that I have as a football fan, I would rather err on the side of I'm going to be really conservative. I'm going to be really patient. Because if he is thrown into the mix and he fails, and let's be honest, 70% of first-round quarterbacks fail. You can look it up.
Right, and that's regardless of whether or not they play
regardless
right away or not.
But the fail percentage is high. We just have to admit that.
True.
Doesn't mean Jaxson Dart's going to fail. It just means when you draft a quarterback in the first round, we all get excited, we all get hot and bothered. The fail rate is very high.
True.
If he fails, we'll look back at, hey, was he rushed too quickly? I'm just first guessing the whole thing and telling you that I'd be extra conservative. Anger's not the right word, Tiki. I'm not angry. Why would I be angry? I totally get why a Giant fan will be excited. I'm just trying to be reasonable. I'm trying to look at this from my experience of watching young quarterbacks get rushed into it and just clearly not be ready.
Yeah, but I think some of that also becomes the coaching situation.
Sure.
In Carolina, let's just go back to Bryce Young, who I just referenced. That was a terrible, terrible situation that they had with Frank Reich taking over. I mean, again, it's kind of like, unfortunately, the Jets situation when Gase gets fired, immediately takes another job. Frank Reich gets fired from the Indianapolis Colts, gets hired really quickly to be the Carolina Panthers' new head coach, but he wants to win.
Right.
He has zero patience for a young quarterback, but they draft one anyways, and then are we surprised that he stunk? The answer is no.
It's a bad situation.
It was a terrible situation to draft a quarterback into. You look at the situation down in Houston with C.J. Stroud, and I've mentioned this multiple times, but you bring in what we didn't know at the time, but what we do know now, a very good head coach, right? A very good leader of men who has an offensive coordinator who had just spent the last 3 seasons tutoring young quarterbacks in San Francisco. Right, Bobby Slowick, right? Remember that. And so it was a perfect situation for him. And then you go to Washington, and this is the one that's closest to home, and it's the one that we're going to see in 5 days down in D.C., is you bring in a veteran, super respected head coach in Dan Quinn, who's remembered for the wrong reason in Atlanta, and he hires Cliff Kingsbury, who, by the way, in his last stint as head coach and offensive coordinator, had the offensive rookie of the year, right, and Kyler Murray. And so it was the perfect situation in Houston. It was the perfect situation for Jaden Daniels in Washington. And I'm biased, obviously, because I'm close to this team, especially close now. But I feel like this is a good situation for a young quarterback, and especially because he doesn't have to play. He's not like Zach Wilson was with the Jets.
Massive mistake.
Where he just said, all right, we're not even going to compete you with anybody. You're getting a starting job.
The Giants situation, and I think I'm going to be fair in saying this, is not Frank Reich in Carolina. It is not an awful situation. But I also can't say it's perfect. Well, I can't say it's Houston or Washington. I mean, the jury is still out on Kafka and Daboll. And this is going to be how the jury decides, ladies and gentlemen. The jury's going to decide based on this.
True.
Based on Jaxson Dart.
Right. You're right. But again, I happen to believe that Brian Daboll is a very good head coach. I happen to believe that Mike Kafka, despite I'm not going to call it butting of heads, but whatever the situation was with him and Dabes 2 years ago, it notwithstanding that he's a good offensive coordinator. There's a reason that he keeps getting offensive coordinator head coaching interviews, even though he didn't call a play a year ago. You know what I mean? And so I'm choosing to believe that they have the right situation around their quarterback room, and it feels like Jaxson Dart is in the right situation. Again, what happens on the field, whether he's playing or not, is going to determine all of those things that I just referenced. But I think that this Giant situation is right for a young quarterback to develop and grow into.